Hi, I'm Marcus with the IndieMusicLab.com. So one of the things I don't really talk about much on my channel is panning. And there are a couple reasons for that. One is because it doesn't matter how great your panning technique is or how sophisticated you are about it. If your tracks themselves suck, then none of it matters. And so that's why I spend most of my time on this channel focusing on helping you improve those tracks in the first place. But panning is obviously still important because stereo width is important. And stereo width is one of those tools that we want to use so that we can improve the overall quality of our songs. So in this video, I'm gonna walk you through a super simple production and I'm gonna give you my 3 rules for having an effective panning approach for every song that you produce. So let's jump right in. So the production that I'm going to show you here to walk you through my 3 panning rules is my remake of Radiohead's song No Surprises. It sounds like this. So now that you have a feel for what we're working with, step 1 for panning is you gotta keep some things mono. And then an extension of that is if everything is stereo, then nothing is stereo. So here's what I mean. What would happen if we were to put stereo width plugins like doublers or flangers or choruses, right, and just kind of spread out all the tracks? Well, then you would have no stereo width. What makes stereo width happen is when you have multiple mono tracks that are panned either to the left or the center or the right or somewhere in between. So that's the first thing. Do not plaster your tracks with a bunch of stereo width or like slap delay on every track to kind of spread it out or use some type of stereo width plugin. Those should only be used on individual tracks where it really does benefit the song. So don't just blindly add a plugin and be like, oh, but it sounds different, therefore it sounds better. Not always the case. Remember, keep some things mono. If everything is stereo, then nothing is stereo. Now the second rule is the counterbalance rule of panning. Now the counterbalance rule is if something goes left, something else needs to go right to counterbalance it. So this song has the perfect example of this. So on the right side, we have this electric guitar. It's panned, I believe, I don't think it's 100 right, but as you can see right here, it's panned 75 to the right on this track right here. Right? Now, since we have that track that's isolated, that's just a guitar track on the right, you want to counterbalance that with something on the left. And what did we do in this song? As you can hear on the original Radiohead version of this song as well, you have a bell sound on the left. It sounds like this. And that is panned to the left, right? It's panned 100 to the left. And then you combine the two. So they offset each other. They counterbalance. So that's the counterbalance rule of panning. Now the third rule is connected to this. So this is like an extension of this. In this case, with the guitar and the bell sound, we were using 2 different sounds and panning one left and panning one right, but they were playing similar things, right? So they hold very similar weight, because when you're listening to a song, you don't want that feeling of like your head is going this way because everything's on the right side or the most powerful loud track is on the right side. So it feels like you gotta like tilt your head to stay, it just doesn't feel natural. And so that is why that rule is important. As far as like you want to counterbalance. If you do add something on the periphery, make sure that you also add something else on the other side to balance that weight. Now, rule 3 is use the double tracking technique, which double tracking is very simple. You just record the same performance or a very similar performance using the same instrument, and you record 2 different takes, and then you pan one track left and pan the other track to the right. So this is most classically done with an acoustic guitar. You've heard this a million times. So here's the first take of an acoustic guitar. Let me turn off the room reverb on these. That way you can hear them in a more isolated way. Right? So it's completely to the left, and then using a whole different recording, but playing the same thing essentially, I have another track and I panned this one all the way to the right. So you have these 2 tracks. And that's just a cool sound. then let's add this room reverb back to it to give it some nice space. And that also helps kind of bridge the gap, and it glues both of them together so that they're not quite as disconnected. So you can use double tracking on not only acoustic guitars, but you can also use it for vocal doubles. That's another classic way to use double tracking, where if you have your lead vocal, then you record, say, 2 vocal doubles. These are, again, new takes. You're not duplicating the original audio and doing some weird things. You're actually recording different takes, and then you're perhaps panning one left, one right, or stacking them down the middle. You can keep them mono if you want, and I even do that sometimes. But the key here is when you're double tracking, it does give you that flexibility to pan one far left or pan one far right, or kind of halfway, or have them both mono. But in whatever the case is, whatever your preference is, it does create more of that full, interesting sound when you stack and layer in that way. So those are my 3 rules for panning. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope this gave you some clarity. Now, if you want to dive deeper into actually creating indie songs, that's the genre that I teach here, then you need to go download the guide, my free guide, The 7 Steps to a Killer Indie Song. If you find yourself procrastinating and not getting your songs finished, my friend, you don't have any excuses anymore, because this guide does exist, and it's The 7 Steps to a Killer Indie Song. This walks you through a step-by-step process for how to take your song from no idea all the way to a finished song that's ready to release to Spotify. So I'll leave a link in the description below. It is 100% free. So be sure to check that out, especially if you've been procrastinating of late and if you felt like you just don't really have a plan, because this gives you a plan. All right, thank you so much for watching this video. I'm just gonna go ahead and play this remake from start to finish. That way you can get a good feel for what everything sounds like. And as you're listening to this, pay attention to the panning, pay attention to those guitars, listen to like how the bass is just mono down the middle. The drums aren't completely wide. They're, they're slightly stereo, but they're still mostly mono down the middle. You've got the vocal that's kind of down the middle, and then you've got the electric guitar on the right, and then the bell on the left, right? Just kind of pay attention to everything as you're listening to this. And I will see you in the next video. Thank you again so much for watching. Have a good one.